Hello, my Biblio darlings, and welcome to today's show. The book we're going to be reading is Mr. Quiet. And let me introduce myself to you. My name is Mally, and welcome to Bibliothesia. And before we read the story, Mr. Quiet, let's remind our bodies that we're safe right here and right now. So how are we going to do that? We're going to do that through two exercises. The first one is what's known as a 4-4-8 deep breathing exercise, where we're going to inhale our breath for 4, hold the breath for 4, exhale out for 8, and then I'm going to tell you some jokes. And the whole purpose of that is when we hear a joke, we laugh. When we laugh, we naturally relax our body. So with that, pretend you have... let me start again. Let's do the first exercise. Let's do the deep breathing exercise and pretend you have a balloon inside your tummy. And make it bigger by breathing deeply for 1, 2, 3, 4. And now hold the breath for and exhale out for 8. Good job. And I don't know about you, but whenever I do that deep breathing exercise, I always feel calmer. Now I'm going to reach over and grab the joke book. And I'm going to share with you 3 jokes. Here's the first one, and they're all knock-knock jokes. Here's the first one. Knock, knock. Who's there? Lace. Lace who? Lace go fly a kite. Instead of let's go fly a kite. Oh, that's so cute. And let's read the second joke. Knock, knock. Who's there? Dawn. Dawn who? Dawn in the basement is where they hide all the presents. Like down in the basement? Okay. And let's read the third one. Knock, knock. Who is there? Despair. Despair who? Despair tire is missing. Get it? The spare tire is missing? Okay, well, with that, let's read Mr. Quiet. Oh, and look at the cover. It looks like a small figure, and it looks like he's shaded in with a dark mustard yellow, and he looks very still. The first picture which I see, there's lots of trees with red and orange and brown and yellow leaves. And there aren't any other houses around except for one. It's a very small house and it seems very quiet. Mr. Quiet liked the quiet life. He lived quietly in a small little cottage in the middle of the woods. The problem was that small little cottage was in the middle of the woods in the middle of a country called Loudland. Everything and everybody in Loudland was noisy. Oh, the noise. Dogs didn't go woof like dogs, you know. They went, take a deep breath, woof. Oh, and look at the dog. It looks like he's saying woof really loudly. People didn't shut their doors like you or I would shut our doors. They slammed them. Bang! People didn't talk to each other. They shouted at each other. Hello! They'd shout as they met in the street. And you've heard about something being as quiet as a mouse, haven't you? Not in Loudland. They had the noisiest mice in the world. Squeak! Squeak! They'd roar at each other. Look at the mice here. They're roaring at each other. Whoa. Mr. Noisy would have liked living in Loudland. He'd have loved it. But Mr. Quiet didn't. Noise frightened him. So he stayed in his cottage in the middle of his wood as much as he could. But of course he couldn't stay there all the time. Every week, for instance, he had to go shopping. He used to creep into the grocer's store. "Good morning," bellowed the grocer, meaning said really loudly. "What can I do for you?" "Please," whispered Mr. Quiet, "could I have some cornflakes, please?" "What?" "Cornflakes, please," he whispered. "Speak up!" "Cornflakes." "Can't hear you," shouted the grocer. "Next, please." And poor Mr. Quiet had to creep away without any cornflakes. It wasn't fair, was it? He crept into the butcher's. "Please," he whispered, "I'd like some meat." The butcher didn't even hear him. He was humming to himself loudly and fiercely. Mr. Quiet tried again. "Please," he whispered, "I'd like some meat." The butcher started to whistle. It sounded more like a burglar alarm than a whistle. Mr. Quiet fled, empty-handed. It often happened, which probably explains why he was so little. He didn't get fed a lot. Poor Mr. Quiet. He sat at home that night with a feeling of despair. "Whatever am I to do?" he thought. "It's no use," he thought. "I'll just have to try again." And so the following day he went shopping again. But the same thing happened. Oh, and I should explain what a feeling of despair means. It's like panic and sadness all at once. "Can't hear you," thundered the grocer. "Next, please." "Can't hear you," bellowed the greengrocer. "Next, please." "Can't hear you," roared the milkman. "Next, please." "Can't hear you," boomed the butcher. "Next, please." Oh dear. Poor Mr. Quiet went home and went to bed hungry. Oh, I feel so bad. The next morning he was awakened by a noise that sounded like bombs dropping. It was the Loudland postman knocking at Mr. Quiet's door. Bang! 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 Mr. Quiet went and opened the door. "Morning!" shouted the postman. "Letter for you!" Oh, that would just be so hard for Mr. Quiet. Mr. Quiet took the letter into his kitchen. He sat down to open it. He waited until the noise of the postman's footsteps died away. Clump, 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 clump. Mr. Quiet opened the letter in great excitement. He'd never had a letter before. It was from Mr. Happy in Happyland, an invitation to stay. Mr. Quiet was overjoyed. He rushed upstairs and packed his bag and set off that very morning. It was late when he arrived on Mr. Happy's doorstep. He knocked on Mr. Happy's door. Tap, tap, tap. Mr. Happy opened the door. "Hello," he smiled. "I thought I heard something. You must be Mr. Quiet. Well, don't just stand there. Come in and have some supper." It was the first proper meal Mr. Quiet had had for months, and while he was eating it, he told Mr. Happy all about the problems he's been having in Loudland. Mr. Happy was most sympathetic. Over breakfast the following morning, Mr. Happy told Mr. Quiet that he'd been thinking about his problem. "I think," he said, "that under the circumstances you'd better stay here in Happyland." Aw, there's Mr. Quiet and Mr. Happy, and they're together and they're both smiling. Mr. Quiet's face lit up. "And," continued Mr. Happy, "we'll find you a house." And he went on. "A job." Mr. Quiet's face dropped. "I'm not very good at jobs," he confessed, "because I'm too quiet." "Ah," smiled Mr. Happy, "I have the very job for someone quiet like you." And so the very next day, Mr. Quiet started work. And he loves it. Do you know where he works? In the Happy Lending Library. As you know, everybody who goes into a library has to be very quiet. Shh. And only whispering is allowed. What a clever idea of Mr. Happy's, wasn't it? And these days Mr. Quiet is as happy as can be. Why, only the other day, do you know what he did on his way home from work? But before we do that, there's Mr. Happy, Mr. Quiet, and he's happy. But let's see what Mr. Quiet did. He was so happy, He laughed out loud. Can you imagine? Tee-hee. Next, please. Aw. That just goes to show you that sometimes when you have a personality that is one way and it's so different from everybody else that you might have to find a place where you actually fit in, where everyone else is like you. And I think that's what happened for Mr. Quiet when he went to visit Mr. Happy. Well, with that, what did you think of the story? Write in the comments below. That was a neat story. I really liked it. Well, let's remind our bodies now that it's safe. Do you remember how to do that deep breathing exercise? Well, let's inhale deeply for 1, 2, 3, 4. And now let's hold the breath for Now let's exhale out for 8. That's such a beautiful reminder that we are safe right here in the moment. And just by acknowledging that, our body will relax more. Now let me reach over for my joke book. And here are some 3 knock-knock jokes. Knock, knock. Who's there? Lace. Lace who? Lace go fly a kite. As opposed to let's go fly a kite. Oh, I'm so sorry. I read that joke already. Okay, let's read this joke. Knock, knock. Who's there? Dishes. Dishes who? Dishes the police. Open up. Like this is the police? Okay. Knock, knock. Who's there? Distress. Distress who? Distress is fancy enough to wear to the ball. Get it? This dress is fancy enough to wear to the ball? That's cute. Knock, knock. Who's there? Dummy. Dummy who? Dummy a favor and open the door? Oh, do me a favor and open the door? That's cute. And here's the third joke. Knock, knock. Who's there? Pulp. Pulp who? Pulp your pants. They're falling down. Get it? Like, pull up your pants. That is so good. Anyway, with that, it's been wonderful spending time with you today. I'm hoping that you're watching this with your mom or your dad or your caregiver or your aunts and uncles or brothers and sisters, and or with your principal at school or the students in your class or your teacher. Wherever you're watching Bibliothesia from, thank you so much for watching. And remember to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can hear when there's new stories coming up. Well, it's been wonderful spending time with you. And until next time, bye!